If you saw a woman sitting quietly at a dinner table while three grown men laughed at her, taunted her, and thought she was powerless, what would you do? Most people would look away, maybe pretend not to see. But what happened next in this story will not only shock you, it will remind you never to underestimate someone who carries silent strength. Before I take you inside this unforgettable night, let me ask you, if you love stories that reveal courage, justice, and the hidden strength of ordinary people, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel Goodness Corner. Because at the end of this story, you're going to want to remember every single detail. It was a chilly Friday night at a mid-range restaurant downtown. The kind of place where couples met for anniversary dinners, business people sealed deals over steaks, and college kids pooled their money for one shared dessert. The lighting was soft, golden, romantic. The sound of clinking glasses and low music filled the air. At the far end, near the wide window overlooking the street, sat a woman in her early 30s. Her name was Rachel. She had striking dark hair pulled back neatly, eyes that carried both warmth and mystery, and a calm presence that made her stand out even though she wasn't trying to. Dressed in a simple black dress with a light jacket on the chair beside her, she gave off an air of composure, as if she belonged anywhere she chose to sit. Rachel wasn't waiting for anyone. She wasn't there for a date or a meeting. She had just finished work and had chosen this place for one quiet dinner by herself, something she often did when she needed to clear her thoughts. The waitress had just placed a plate of salmon and vegetables in front of her, and Rachel whispered a soft, "Thank you." She picked up her fork with a grace that came naturally, and for a few minutes, everything was peaceful. Until the laughter began. Three men at a nearby table had been watching her since she walked in. Loud, brash, the kind who thought their confidence was charm but came across as arrogance. They wore tailored suits, flashy watches, and had voices that carried across the room. At first, their laughter was about something else. But slowly, it shifted. One of them nudged the other, tilting his glass of whiskey toward Rachel's table. "Look at her. Eating all by herself. What kind of woman comes out alone on a Friday night?" The second smirked. "Maybe waiting for someone who didn't show up. Poor thing." The third leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on her. "Or maybe she's just desperate for attention. Should we give her some?" They chuckled, their voices dripping with mockery. Rachel ignored them, at least outwardly. She kept eating, shoulders relaxed, gaze steady. But inside, she felt the familiar wave of irritation, the kind that women all over the world had learned to swallow too many times. She had faced worse before. Much worse. Still, she hoped they would stop. She hoped they would simply move on with their evening. But predators rarely stop when they think they've found prey. The first man got up and swaggered toward her table. He leaned a little too close, his cologne overwhelming, his smirk deliberate. "Hey there, sweetheart. Mind if I sit? You look like you could use some company." Rachel didn't flinch. She placed her fork down, folded her hands neatly on the table, and looked him directly in the eye. "I'm fine, thank you. Please return to your table." The firmness in her voice should have been enough. But his grin only widened. He pulled out the chair opposite her and began to lower himself into it. Before he could sit, Rachel spoke again, quieter this time, but sharper. "Don't." He froze for a second, thrown off by the steel in her tone. Then, embarrassed by his own hesitation, he chuckled and waved to his friends. "Oh, she's got fire. I like that." The other two men joined in the jeers. One called out, "Careful, she might bite." A few people in the restaurant glanced over, their faces uncertain, nervous. But no one intervened. That's how it often goes. People see, they hear, but they convince themselves it's not their problem. The man leaned closer. "Come on, sweetheart. Don't be cold. We're just having fun." Rachel's lips pressed into a thin line. She glanced around the room, noting the silence that had begun to spread. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen. And that was when she realized something. It was time. Time to remind herself, and everyone else, that she was not someone to toy with. Her calmness was unsettling. Most women would have shown fear or anger by now. But Rachel's face remained serene, her breathing steady. She thought of the years she had trained, the countless hours under the scorching sun, in freezing water, in darkness where she had learned discipline, patience, and precision. Skills most people in this restaurant could not even imagine. She gave him one last chance. I said, return to your table. But he didn't. Instead, he placed his hand on her table, fingers inches from her plate. That was the mistake. What happened next took less than 15 seconds. Rachel's chair scraped back just slightly, her body moving with speed that blurred. She grabbed his wrist, twisted it, and in one fluid motion, had him face down on the table, his arm locked painfully behind his back. The sound of his groan silenced the entire room. Glasses stopped mid-air, forks hovered over plates, conversations died instantly. His two friends shot up from their chairs, shocked, angry. Hey! What the hell do you think you're doing? Rachel's eyes flicked toward them, cold, unshaken. As one lunged, she sidestepped smoothly, hooking her foot behind his and sending him crashing into the floor with a heavy thud. The third man tried to grab her arm, but before he could even tighten his grip, she had spun, striking with precision at his chest. He stumbled back, breath knocked out of him, clutching at himself in disbelief. 15 seconds. That's all it took. The first man whimpered against the table, begging for her to let him go. The second groaned from the floor, struggling to rise. The third sat in shock, eyes wide, realizing they had just tangled with someone far beyond their comprehension. The restaurant was utterly silent. And then, slowly, a murmur rose. Someone whispered, "Did you see that?" Another said, "She moved like a soldier." Rachel released the first man, letting him collapse back into his chair. She adjusted her jacket calmly, smoothed her hair, and without raising her voice, addressed all three. You thought I was weak because I was alone. You thought I would let you humiliate me because no one else would stop you. But you miscalculated. You don't know me. You don't know what I've survived. The men looked at her, shame and fear mixing in their expressions. No one in the room doubted her words. Rachel picked up her fork again, took a bite of her salmon as if nothing had happened, and spoke one final time, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. Let this be a reminder. Some of us are trained not just to endure, but to end threats before they grow. Remember that before you decide to prey on someone again. A hush lingered, then applause broke out, hesitant at first, then stronger, until the whole restaurant was clapping. Not just for the fight, but for the courage, the strength, the quiet power she had displayed. Rachel didn't bow, didn't smile. She didn't need to. She simply continued her dinner, her composure unbroken, while three grown men sat shattered around her, the weight of humiliation heavy on their shoulders. And yet, as much as this seemed like the end, it was only the beginning. Because what none of the diners knew that night was that Rachel's past was far darker than anyone imagined, and the reason she moved like a seal, was because once upon a time, she had been one. The whispers in the restaurant didn't fade quickly, they followed Rachel long after she left. What the world didn't know was that she had once worn the trident of a Navy SEAL, trained to survive, protect, and never bow to fear. Tonight wasn't about showing off, it was about reminding predators that women aren't prey. Rachel's story spread like wildfire, inspiring countless others to stand tall. And if her strength moved you today, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner, where courage always finds a voice.